Traditional Chinese gardens are constructed to recreate and miniaturize large natural landscapes in limited space. It's always using the rock, water, plant, and architecture to express the inward feeling. Chinese garden has 5,000-year history and it was beginning during Shang Dynasty. During that time, the garden only built for king and royal family. In Wei, Tang, and Song dynasty, the Chinese garden were mainly built with river, mountain, plant, and pavilion to bring more quality of nature into garden. The physical characteristics of traditional Chinese garden were associated with China's diverse natural landscape resorts, which are the mountain, river, and its climate. Next, the principle and physical of Chinese garden also closely connect to the Chinese philosophical idea, which was Confucianism and Taoism. The Confucianism are promote the harmonies and the harmonious coexistence between man and nature, and believe that they are essentially connected. Therefore, the traditional Chinese landscape are always integrating the building, mountain, rock, river, and plant to create the harmony between man and nature. The Chinese garden also emphasizes the symbolic meaning of element and transferring the emotion into scenery, giving the meaning to object and express the virtue to the people. Then, based on Taoism, all the universes are shoulder the yin and embrace the yang. Then mix the yin and yang with each other to beget the harmony. So one of the principles of Chinese garden is to mix and complement each garden element in order to achieve the harmony. So according to it, we can summarize that the recreate the nature must based on profound observation and deep understanding of nature, and is not just to copying the form of nature. Okay, and next, the characteristics of traditional Chinese landscape is to miniaturize the natural landscape, and all the elements inside the garden are deliberate and arranged purposefully. Traditional Chinese gardens are avoiding to explore everything at once. So they will set out and consist different scene spots inside different scenic sections, and each scenic section should have its own characters, but at the same time it must unify under a center theme. Then the traditional Chinese garden also consider to express harmonious arrangement of each element. They have four essential elements in traditional Chinese garden, which are the rock and mountains, water, vegetation, as well as architecture. Rock always used to create the miniature mountain in traditional Chinese garden. It was not just for aesthetic. Usually it has symbolic meaning in Chinese culture. In traditional Chinese landscape, rock are represent the yang, and the peak was symbolize the virtue and stability. They have three criteria in choosing the rock, which was leanness, perforation, and texture. So, the stone with top-heavy shape, riddled with hole and rich furrow, will preference be selected. Next is water. Water represents the life and yin in traditional Chinese landscape, and it can use to counterbalance the effect of mountains to achieve the harmony. In Chinese garden, water are most common used to create the pond and lake, and usually it will around by the plant and rock. Okay, then one of the water layout tactics in Chinese garden is breakage. which designed a small pond by using stone to form the bank, thin bamboo and white vines around the edge, and put some golden fish in it to achieve a scent that begins in deep and wide mountain. Next is vegetation. Everything in Chinese garden have inner meaning. Plant also. So, the criteria in choosing the plant will base on its texture, color, fragrance, and culture meaning. For example, the rhodos in Chinese garden represent the purity, then the bamboo represent the flexibility, and the pine is represent the longevity. Then the tree and shrub will plant in more naturalistic arrangement, and the regular geometric shape are avoided in traditional Chinese garden. After that, the common structure in traditional Chinese landscape is bridge, pavilion, wall, and corridor. The wall will always used to demarcating the space and also as the backdrop to stand out the vegetation. Then the corridor are used to connect all single building into whole, and one side of it will facing to the garden scenery. Next, borrowed scenery is one of the design features in Chinese garden. It can to create a sense that the garden was much more bigger than it. Then the other design feature are distant view, obstructive scenery, and feature spot, and so on. Okay. Next is the example of imperial Chinese garden. Okay. The imperial summer village of Chengde is largest existing imperial garden and is one of the famous garden in China. Its mountain resort is divided into 4 areas, which is the palace area, mountain area, lake area, and plain area. The most famous of this garden is its 72 scenic spot. Next is the example of private Chinese garden. The humble administrated garden also has one of the 4 most famous gardens in China. It is celebrated by its exquisite layout of poor locally islet, bamboo grove, pine, pavilion, and corridor. And it also is the representative and example of classical garden and hailed as the mother of Chinese garden. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.